This is a Next Weather Alert from CBS News Miami.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chief Meteorologist Cabrera. We are going to have a long night, I do think, here with some flooding concerns here. We have 2 flood advisories already. That's just the beginning of what could turn into a flash flood event. And the reason for that is we are just going to continue to stream in rainfall over the same area over and over. So 2 flood advisories already from the county line. And this extends further to the south to include Sunrise, Davie, Fort Lauderdale. And that was just issued by the National Weather Service. It ends at between 9:45, the one to the north there, and then till 10 o'clock. Let me show you what's triggering that flood advisory, right? So we have these very heavy rain bands that have set up. Train tracks, right? Not northwest, not southeast. This line is going to continue pushing to the southeast. The setup here, we don't need the heating of the day. We don't need, temperatures right around 90. This is one of those events that actually sometimes does get worse at night because the dynamics are there. We kind of set that up. I'll loop this for you to be able to see just over the last hour what I'm referring to. Look at that. Right over the flood advisories. This will hold for another, I'd say 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Hopefully we'll get a little break here. If we don't, and this continues, these will easily turn into flash flood warnings, which is when you do need to take action to make sure to protect your property to prevent any rising water from coming in. So once this continues further south and west, it'll lose steam over the Everglades. At that point, we're not too concerned, but notice the discernible end of the heaviest rainfall to the south and then not much going on to the north. This is pivoting in on the same area of low pressure that the National Hurricane Center is looking at for potential development. It doesn't matter for us because the impacts are going to be kind of like we have a tropical depression on top of us. Thinking several inches of accumulation if you're watching our shows earlier, and you can see there's just more where that comes from. Once you set up these bands like that, these train tracks, the rain just continues to get heavier and steadier. And then if you start getting into thunderstorm activity like we do a little bit further to the south, and that's not even anywhere near the flood advisories, you see those cells there. When you see that lightning there, that's indicative of obviously intensifying thunderstorms, and that's going to continue moving south and west. Places like Kendall could get in on it here. We do have a little bit of a gap in between, right? From the northern area of the heaviest rain through Pompano Beach and Fort Lauderdale, we have just kind of light shower activity further south into downtown Miami and the rest of Dade here, but then we are going to watch that cluster as it moves into the south and west. One other thing that I take a look at is how much rain is falling, right? What are the rainfall rates? And when you look at, colors like that, that is not a good situation because this is, again, not light rainfall. Let's put a few examples of here what we're talking about there. So we'll take a look and sample some of the yellows here. You see, 3.63 inches of rainfall an hour. Now, if these storms would move out of the way, we wouldn't be in trouble. But if this flow continues, that is what you're going to get, 3 to 4 inches in a 1-hour period, and that is getting us into a flash flood threat here. And in fact, where we don't have the flood advisories further to the south, some of these bands continue embedded with some pockets of heavier rainfall, and that's going to continue over the next several hopefully not over the next several hours of the same area, but over the next several minutes. And you can see that flow just continuing from northeast to southwest. The Weather Prediction Center has us at a level 1 of 4 threat for flash flooding for tonight and heading into tomorrow. As I talked about earlier, that could expand and go into a level 2 situation depending on what we get for tonight. But the worry is as well is that this is not going to be a one-time deal. We're going to continue to see these rain bands continuing to move in throughout the night tonight and heading into tomorrow. In fact, I want to show you that on our next weather rain track. I'll be able to show you the activity as it continues to move in. Over the last, just in the last few, I'd say, 3 hours, this will say 6 hours, but there you see there, I'll zoom in a little bit. These are the pockets that you have to be very careful with. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of rainfall in just a few hours there. We're talking about anywhere from 1 to 3 to 4 inches, some of the radar estimates already. So that is a situation for tonight that we'll be looking at here. As far as the advisories, let me go back to that because I want to just kind of get you up to speed on what's going on with the initial, I think, threat here. Did we multiply? Indeed, we did. Just in the last minute. The National Weather Service has now extended the flood advisory, rightly so, to include all of this area here. Now, this is street flooding, so it's the kind of, flood situation where you're going to have street flooding, nuisance to get from A to B. If the heavy rain continues, this will turn into a flash flood threat, and that is a whole different level there. That's when you really need to, stay away from these areas. I'm going to show you just exactly where this starts here, right? So through Boca, down through Hillsborough Beach, the extent of the western line there through Lakeview down towards Coconut Creek, and then you see this boundary here. That's because they just expanded the flood advisory, realizing, of course, that the rain just continues to expand a little bit further to the south to include Chase Stadium, and now we're just to the north of Wilton Manor. So this is primarily a Broward event, as the model's really locked in on earlier this afternoon. Let's put the radar back on so you'll be able to see as we combine everything together, and there you see those heavy rain bands continuing to move in. I'll loop it. You'll be able to see just in the last hour. My goodness, it just fills in. And again, this is one of those situations where once you get that going, the storms just feed off each other, and that flow off the water is not a good situation. It's not moving, towards the east. What happens here, you get this band of rain, different wind speeds arrive at the coast, so very little friction over water, and then all of a sudden you have a lot of friction over land, and so that creates what we call shear, right? A difference in wind speeds depending on where you are. And so that coastal convergence is what it's called meteorologically, but for you and me, it just means a lot of rain that can get squeezed out by an atmosphere that is tropical. So this is going to be an event that we're just going to have to deal with, not just for tonight, but into tomorrow as well. It's not going to rain every minute the whole night and tomorrow, as I've been saying, but it is going to rain heavily when it does, and then we'll get hopefully a few breaks. But what's happening here in Broward County is a unique setup here again, and that is the flow that just continues to come in. So you're getting this train track that sets up here, and the storms just follow along, and there's no movement north to south. It's just kind of training in, and again, you see those pockets of heavier downpours. They weaken a little bit as they get to the coast, and then they re-energize inland, and then we have more where that came from. And as I've been showing you, I'll just widen this out so you'll be able to see what we're talking about here with this area of low pressure all the way towards the Bahamas there. And when you get a frontal boundary, this is why we're looking at this. When you get a frontal boundary that's just kind of this is kind of stalled over the area, you get winds coming at different directions from northwest to southeast, and you get that rising air right along the boundary. And what will happen often, so you get this flow that comes in like that, and SPID begins to develop. So you start getting a circulation, and that is what the Weather Service is looking at. Right now it's in the upper levels of the atmosphere, but if we get a surface circulation, that's when you talk about, a tropical depression. But as I mentioned, I think it's going to be the same impacts here with very heavy rainfall. Let me show you the latest from the Weather Prediction Center as far as how much rainfall, and this is, just through tomorrow, Saturday, and then Sunday. So it's that total that we're looking at here, and you can see anywhere from, 2-4 inches, and right there, right along the coast where we are talking about the heavy rain tonight, that's where we have the potential to pick up several inches of accumulation. And this is broad, right? So 2 to 4 inches, some areas 6 inches, but already tonight, in a very short amount of time, in 3 hours, we've got already several inches. So I always put that plus on there. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's always a plus because you get these setups here that can really just start churning up the rainfall. So we'll recap this, and we'll be back on air, if we have a flash flood situation. And I'm thinking that we will do that because I just don't see this letting up. But here is the latest radar, and you can see there, if you're watching us from Broward, if you know anybody here, they are enjoying the rainfall right now because you hear the thunder. Everybody likes rain at night. Problem is, this could turn into a big flood event, and then everybody trying to get to work in the morning is going to have a big problem. So 2 flood advisories right now across the area here, and we're talking about Broward, and the flood advisories will expire between 9:45 and 10 o'clock. I'll take the radar out so you can see exactly where this is, right? So they're from Davie all the way northeast to the county line on 95, and we're looking at the turnpike being impacted as well. Flood advisory between 9:45 and 10 o'clock for Broward County. I'll be back if I see a flash flood warning that you need to know about, and we'll also jump in on the air as well. Otherwise, we'll see you back here as the conditions in the weather department warn.